Dawn of War 4 has had lots of content published about it in the last month, mostly from IGN and all about the orcs. With so much information being available, today's video is going to unpack a lot, if not all of it. From extensive wargear customization, to hero units, new special units, base building, stratagems, and even some surprising graphical details, recent trailers have given us our best look yet at how Dawn of War 4 is shaping up. Let's start with wargear, because one of the biggest strengths of the older Dawn of War titles was just how customizable your armies felt. And from what we are seeing here, Dawn of War 4 is absolutely leaning back into that identity. Throughout trailers, we have been able to spot wargear options being applied to a wide range of orc units. We see Storm Boys, Flashkits, Shooter Boys, Beast Snagger Boys, Death Dreads, and even Gretchens, all sporting potential wargear upgrade options at various points of the trailer. It's not 100% clear whether all of these units will actually have wargear options, but there are certainly some that can be confirmed to do so. Of course, hero units are very much included in this system, and we got a really solid look at Guzcutter's wargear options. One of these is Beastly Rage, which boosts damage and war generation for nearby units for a set duration. Another is Beast Gob, which deploys a bomb squid horde directly into the fight. There's also the Boss Pole, increasing damage and experience gained for Guzcutter and his attached unit, while also boosting Guzcutter's own health pool. Then there's Cyborg Strength, which lets Guzcutter perform a powerful melee attack that knocks down its target while damaging and stunning nearby enemies. On top of that, Guzcutter doesn't just stay locked into his starting loadout. While he begins with a Beast Chopper and Custom Shooter, you can upgrade these into huge versions, which also unlocks the Beast Chopper swing ability. That kind of layered progression is exactly what Dawn of War fans have been asking for. Not to mention also, there is progression within the campaign. Initially, Guzcutter stands on his own 2 feet, but eventually, as you complete more missions, you'll have the opportunity to give Guzcutter a squigosaur. Now, wargear depth isn't just limited to heroes either. Beast Snagger Boys can be upgraded with a thump gun, increasing their ranged damage, and interestingly, these upgrades can be purchased in advance and activated later when you need them. Shooter Boys can add a boss knob to their squad, increasing their damage output, and once they hit veteran status, they can even gain access to stick bombs. Storm Boys get one of the most fun-looking upgrades of all with Rocket Jump, allowing them of course to leap across the battlefield, ignore obstacles, and deal damage on landing. It's clearly very fast, aggressive, and gives the orcs an extra sense of maneuverability. Now, before we move on, if you've been enjoying the breakdowns and the deep dives that we've been doing here on Dawn of War Central, it would really mean a lot if you gave the video a thumbs up. It genuinely helps the channel grow, pushes the videos out to more Dawn of War fans, and makes content like this all the more possible in the first place. Alright, let's talk graphics for a moment. Keeping in mind that this is still very much a work in progress, some of the visual details on display are genuinely impressive. Sync kills have already been discussed quite a bit, and they look cinematic and brutal as ever, especially during large-scale battles. But something a bit more subtle stood out this time around, and it's the water reflections. We can clearly see units reflected in water on the battlefield, which is not something you often see in real-time strategy games. If at all ever, it's a small detail, but it shows a serious level of care and polish from the developers. That said, I do have a few concerns about the graphical details. In particular, the Imperial Guard units shown in the trailer look extremely static. Their animations seem very stiff. In fact, I think there is no recoil on their weapons at all. Overall, they feel very lifeless compared to the orcs and the other factions we've seen so far. That said, this is clearly unfinished footage, so before all of you go crazy in the comments, just bear that in mind. Given how dynamic that the other units look from other factions, this is almost something certainly going to change and be polished in the future. Moving on to special units and heroes, because this is where things get really interesting. One thing we noticed in the trailer is that hero or commander units are marked with a yellow icon in the unit bar. What is surprising though is that we don't just see this on Gorguts and Guzkata. We also spot a Werboy named Buzzsnap carrying the same hero style icon, which strongly suggests that we'll be able to field multiple hero units in the campaign. Now that makes a lot of sense, especially for factions like the Space Marines, who could reasonably have multiple commanders depending on the sub-faction, like the Blood Ravens and the Dark Angels. There is one odd moment though, where it appears that there are two Guzkatas on the map at the same time, alongside a hero Werboy. Now I think this is probably most likely because it's a developer build, and maybe they just spawned two Guzkatas. What's really interesting though to talk about is a theory made by Norseland, who suggested that in the co-op campaign, each player might control a different hero. So one player could be commanding Guzkata, while another controls Buzzsnap. If that turns out to be true, that would be a fantastic way to make co-op feel more meaningful and tactical. Speaking of special units though, we also get our first real look at a brand new Adeptus Mechanicus unit, the Cybernetica Datasmith. Big shout out for Cosmos Akai by the way for identifying this one. Traditionally, Datasmiths are known for controlling and programming Castellan robots, but in the footage we see, there are no Castellans in sight. This does raise the possibility that the Datasmith might function as a more general support unit for the Adeptus Mechanicus in Dawn of War 4. We also see the Sicarian Rustalkers being featured, and it turns out they are invisible at long range, which is awesome, right up until a small army of them suddenly decloaks and deletes your forces in multiplayer games. Next up, we are taking a look at cover mechanics. Now we have already seen ranged units taking cover behind debris in previous footage, but this trailer confirms that units can be selected and told to occupy specific cover locations, which is of course great for tactical play. What we don't know yet though is which factions can actively build cover. We know certainly that the Orcs can, but it remains to be seen whether the other factions will have similar options. Now let's talk about base building and builders. Base building is very much back, with dedicated structures for unit production and research. What's new though, at least for the Orcs, is how building actually works. There is a global build menu, and considering that the Gretchen tooltip doesn't mention construction in very much detail, it does mention it can repair buildings, but it would be easy to be fooled to think that actually there are no builder units. In fact, it turns out that actually almost all Orc infantry can build structures. This is a really interesting design choice. On one hand, it removes the need for a dedicated builder unit, which could lead to some very aggressive or cheesy build orders, especially considering that Orc buildings are armed with turrets. On the other hand though, it does slightly reduce the strategic depth that comes from protecting builders or disrupting enemy construction. It feels like a hybrid approach between classic Dawn of War and more modern RTS design, but it will be very interesting to see how it plays out. I do indeed have a soft spot for having specific builder units, but I guess I'm probably just old school. Now we also got a look at several Orc buildings in detail. There's the cover structure, the War Banner, which of course boosts War generation and empowers nearby units, while firing a big shooter, the Boys Fort, which produces infantry and research, and the Beast Snagger Hut, which of course produces Beast Snaggers, Squig Bombs, and Squig Hog Riders. The Beast Snagger Hut also has research upgrades, including Orky Outriders, which increases capture speed for Squig Hog Boys. Interestingly, the tooltip suggests that this research doesn't even cost any resources, which is very surprising, but I imagine is something that would change in the future. Speaking of Squig Hog Boys though, they are fast, strong in melee, and it turns out that they can also throw explosives using a sticker throw ability. They do seemingly have a fairly hefty upkeep cost though, along with Beast Snagger Boys and Bomb Squig Hordes. An unupgraded requisition post gives you 65 requisition, and with upkeep costs in the 30s for some of these units, well, it doesn't feel like you'll have that many going at the same time. That being said, I'm pretty sure resource values are almost certainly still being balanced. Now, one really welcome return is the ability to upgrade requisition points, making them harder to lose and increasing resource output, a classic mechanic straight out of Dawn of War 1. Now, Guzcutter's back-mounted turret is confirmed to be operated by a Gretchen, and he absolutely shreds a Castellan robot with it in the trailer. Interestingly though, we see Gorguts both with and without his turret in different footage, which suggests it might actually be a wargear upgrade. Of course, time will tell. I actually don't know for sure. Camera rotation is confirmed, which to be honest is expected, but still nice to see, and maps even appear to contain loot pickups like healing items. I'm not too sure about this one, it feels a little bit arcadey, but I guess it means it's beneficial to be on the map. There's also an interesting structure, presumably for the Adeptus Mechanicus. It's called the Emanatus Field Generator. Maybe it's a structure tied to their new sphere mechanics. Now, before we talk about stratagems, I did want to try something a little bit cheeky on the YouTube algorithm side of things. If I can ask a big favor, if you can drop in the comment section below your favorite emoji, I'm curious to see if that gives the video more impressions. Anyway, let's talk about stratagems. The orcs get some absolutely wild ones. Rok Drop does exactly what you'd expect, slamming a massive rock into the battlefield from orbit, but also bringing along some random orc units to join the fight. Then there's the bomb squig stampede, which deploys multiple uncontrollable bomb squig hordes into a target area. And to close things out, we finally know what a scrap heaper's about. It's a vehicle production building, armed with big shooters, and it also contains research options. Overall, this trailer gave us an incredible amount of information, and if this is the direction that Dawn of War 4 is heading, there's a lot to be excited about. Let me know what you think of what we've discovered so far in the comment section below, what stood out to you the most, and as always, thanks for watching, I'll see you on the next one.